Hey Canuck fans, welcome to the Line Change Podcast, a proud member of the Hockey Podcast Network. We're going to go over an article that talks about some potential destinations for Kiefer Sherwood if the Canucks were to trade him, and there's obviously a very good likelihood that Kiefer Sherwood will be traded. And it asks an obvious question, and that's what NHL teams would want a player like Kiefer Sherwood. And I've got a bit of a blunt answer to that question, like just in general. And that's, or I have a counter to that. And that's what NHL teams wouldn't want a player like Kiefer Sherwood on their roster. I think we've already kind of touched on that in a previous video. I mean, he's that much of a freaking stud. So that is my question to all the 31 other NHL teams. Why wouldn't you want a guy like Kiefer Sherwood on your roster? And if I were them, I'd be ringing up Patrick Allvin, and I wouldn't be surprised if teams haven't already picked up the phone and called Patrick Allvin asking him, what's the price? Like, what do you want for Kiefer Sherwood? We'll take him off your hands. But let's get on with the article from our friends over at Canucks Army. This article in particular is written by friend of the podcast, David Quadrelli. So let's not waste any more time and let's go ahead and just bring this up. So as you guys can see here, the title of this video is Canucks Trade Rumors, which NHL teams might want Kiefer Sherwood. Let's go ahead and bring this up. The theme of the week in Vancouver Canucks land is trade rumors. While the NHL rumor mill typically doesn't heat up until a few months from now, it's heated up plenty already, primarily due to a memo the Canucks sent out to 31 other NHL teams this week stating that they're willing to listen to trade offers for their veteran players. The limited number of clear sellers around the league, especially at this juncture of the season, Canucks are hoping to create an early bidding war of sorts for teams looking to add to their lineup with a short list of options. One name for whom it's become clear that the Canucks are willing to move is pending UFA forward Kiefer Sherwood. Sherwood, who turns 31 in March, is in the second year of a 2-year contract. He signed with the Canucks during the 2024 offseason. In year one of the deal, Sherwood more than broke out, setting career highs in goals, assists, and games played, all the while breaking and setting the new NHL single-season hits record. And in year two, he's shown no signs of stopping. Already at 12 goals through just 24 games, Sherwood has been a major bright spot for a Canucks team that hasn't had a whole lot to go right for it through the first quarter of the season. With the Canucks turning their focus to getting younger, President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford made it clear earlier this week that the club is looking to move their UFA forwards sooner rather than later. Then it goes on to talk about that particular thing with Rutherford, which we already went over, so we're going to skip over that. And we're going to dive into this part. What can the Canucks expect in return? There is an article on Canucks Army from Irfan Ghaffar that talks about, what they could possibly expect in return. You guys can go ahead and check that out. But also keep that in mind when we go over some of these teams. In particular, right here it talks about last season Scott Laughton and what he returned to the Flyers when he was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. A package like that for Sherwood would be a home run for the Canucks. More realistically, however, the Canucks are likely looking at either an A- or a B+ prospect for Sherwood, along with a later round draft pick. Now, obviously, Laughton returned a first-round pick, and the Leafs did send a 4th and 6th round pick back to the Flyers' way. Now, that, of course, as it says here, a premium return package for Sherwood, who, it's worth mentioning, isn't a center like Laughton is, but they are similar in age. And obviously, the Canucks would absolutely love to have a first-round pick in return for Sherwood, but the likelihood of that is probably not very high unless a team really wants a guy like Kiefer Sherwood. And the question is, can the Canucks even convince a team to send them a first-round pick for Sherwood? Obviously, they would want that, but they may have to settle for a second-round pick. And if they can add a B-level prospect in the process, then they'll likely be more than pleased with that return. To maximize the return, the Canucks should be able to retain 50% of Sherwood's salary, giving him a more than workable cap hit of $750,000. That leaves any acquiring team with plenty of flexibility to make more moves at the trade deadline and make Sherwood an even more intriguing trade asset. Now, which teams might be interested in pulling the trigger on a deal? The short answer is most of them. But there are certainly teams at this juncture who will be more desperate than others to add Sherwood to the mix. We're going to focus on those teams, and we're going to start off with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs have gotten off to an abysmal start this season. Their bottom six forward group is a bit of a mess, and Sherwood could certainly be a solution for them. Dakota Joshua was a healthy scratch for the Leafs Wednesday night against the Columbus Blue Jackets and hasn't brought the physicality nor the scoring ability the Leafs hoped he would. Sherwood brings both of those things on a nightly basis and has for the better part of a year. It seems like the exact type of player the Leafs might target to get out of their scoring rut. The Leafs don't own their first or second round pick for the 2026 draft, so the Canucks would likely want a young player back in return. The Leafs' top prospects are Easton Cowan and Ben Danford. Cowan already has 7 points through 15 games and scored the late-time goal against the Blue Jackets on Wednesday night, while Danford projects as a top 4 right shot shutdown defenseman. Cowan is likely a long shot, and the Canucks would likely have to take money back. Think Max Domi's final 3 years at $3.75 million per to even get the Leafs to consider such a move. I obviously, would love for the Canucks to try and get Easton Cowan, but it's likely a long shot, as the Leafs likely do not want to part ways with him, especially after seeing that he already has 7 points through 15 games. The Leafs do have a plethora of young players in their tier just below Cowan and Danford, and apologies if I mispronounce these names. Tinnis Luke Koblar, Tyler Hopkins, Miroslav Holinka, and Victor Johansson are the ones I could see the Canucks being the most interested in. The Leafs this season hasn't gotten off to a good start, and an opportunity to right the ship with a relatively low-risk move might be quite enticing for Leafs GM Brad Treliving. Moving on, we have the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are in a slightly different but still similar enough spot as the Leafs. They started the season hot, spending a good chunk of time at the top of the Atlantic Division standings, but as of today, Detroit is in a logjam of Eastern Conference teams vying for playoff positioning, as you can see right here from this image. At least the top 3 teams in the Eastern Atlantic are the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Ottawa Senators, and the Boston Bruins. A little surprising to see the Senators so high, but they've had a great season, and it's also great to see, Travis Green and the Ottawa Senators being this high up in the standings. And then looking at the wild card, you got the New York Islanders up at the top, along with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and just below the bar is the Montreal Canadiens, Philadelphia Flyers, and then you have the Detroit Red Wings and Columbus Blue Jackets. And the Canadiens, Flyers, and Red Wings are that logjam that Quads is actually referring to. All 3 of them each with 27 points. To gain an edge on these teams, could Detroit, which hasn't made the playoffs since 2016, pull the trigger on a move to add Sherwood to their lineup? He'd undoubtedly bring some swagger with him to the Motor City. As for a return, does 24-year-old Elmer Soderblom count as a young enough player for the Canucks to be interested in? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at Elmer Soderblom, to be exact. Let me just bring this up. So here he is, Elmer Soderblom, or Soderblom is how you pronounce it. As you can see here, this guy's a Swede. So, and Canucks, they like their Swedes. Born July 5th, 2001. He's 24 years old, left wing, right wing, 6'8". Wow. Now this is a big boy, 6'8", 251 pounds, left-handed shot. He was a 2019 6th-round pick by the Detroit Red Wings. It says here, he's more of a stick handler than a forward that will crash the net and throw big hits. Soderblom owns great hands for his size and likes to take the puck to the net. That's obviously positive to see, but let's take a look at his stats here. Starting with the 2022-23 season with the Red Wings, I guess you could classify that as his rookie year. 21 games played, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points in 21. Then with the Grand Rapids Griffins, he had 8 points in 20 games, 5 goals, 3 assists. And then in the 23-24 season with the Grand Rapids Griffins, he had 29 points in 61 games, 13 goals, 16 assists. And then last season with the Red Wings, he had 11 points in 26 games, 4 goals, 7 assists. And then that same season with the Grand Rapids Griffins, he had 17 points in 38 games, 5 goals, and 12 assists. And then so far this year with the Red Wings, he's got 1 goal in 12 games, and he is projected to only get 6 goals in the NHL after 70 games played. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about Elmer Soderblom, and if he intrigues you as a potential, trade target, and, if we were to trade Kiefer Sherwood to the Detroit Red Wings. But let's continue on with the article. Let me just get back to it. Moving on, but also, of course, Detroit has other prospects, young players. Michael Nygaard, apologies if I mispronounced that, Dmitry Buchelnikov, Carter Mazur, William Wallander, and Amadeus Lombardi are the most intriguing and realistic names for the Canucks to target. Next up, we have the Minnesota Wild. If there's one thing Minnesota Wild GM Bill Guerin loves, it's players like Kiefer Sherwood. While the Western Conference isn't quite as tight as the East, it's still a similar story out of this way, as the Wild, who are third in the Central Division, and wildcard 2-seeded Utah Mammoth are separated by just 3 points. The Wild have 2022 19th overall pick Liam Ogren skating on the fourth line, and at 21 years old, he might be one of the more intriguing young players the Canucks could target, although they may have to do more than retain on Sherwood's contract to sweeten the pot. Ogren had no problem putting up points in the SHL and nearly scored at a point-per-game pace in his first AHL season in 24-25. This season, however, Ogren hasn't registered a point through 11 NHL games and put up 5 points in his 9 AHL games with the Iowa Wild. Sherwood makes the Wild a better team than Ogren does today, but make no mistake about it, he's still a blue-chip prospect that the Wild would likely not be near ready to part ways with. Some more realistic options for the Canucks to target from the Wild's prospect pool: Riley Heidt, Ryder Ritchie, Charlie Stramel, and Adam Benak. Next up, we have the Florida Panthers. These next two Florida-based teams fall into the same category that we put the Red Wings in, as Eastern Conference teams jockeying for position in what's been a very close race to this point. However, expectations are obviously higher for the defending Stanley Cup champions, who have their eyes set on a three-peat this spring. Panthers have been absolutely decimated by injuries and could certainly use some immediate help. Of course, once their lineup gets back to full health, Sherwood would still have no problem finding a home in the Panthers' bottom six forward group. In fact, Florida's system might be the best fit for Sherwood. Florida's heavy forecheck and in-your-face style would likely be the best landing spot for Sherwood. Plus, imagine adding Sherwood and his edge to a team that already has Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, and Matthew Tkachuk. Quads jokingly says he's getting frustrated just writing about it. As for pieces in the Panthers' prospect pool that the Canucks might be interested in, Jack Devine, Linus Eriksson, Grayson Sawchin, Matvei Sheruvin, and Shamar Moses are likely the most intriguing options. And actually, next up, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Finally, we turn our attention to the other Florida team. Like the Panthers, the Lightning have had to deal with some injuries of their own this season, but are getting healthier these days. Even with their players returning, the Lightning still have 24-year-old Mission BC-born Gage Goncalves skating in the top six as a right wing on their second line with Jake Gensel and Nick Paul. Sherwood would be an immediate upgrade on Goncalves, and really the Canucks might target the 24-year-old as a main piece in their return for Sherwood. Goncalves is listed as a center, and you have to think the Canucks would like to try him there, even though he's playing the wing right now. That being said, the transitioning/rebuilding Canucks should likely be targeting younger, more true prospects with higher ceilings than Goncalves at this point, so it might not be as simple as that. A quick look at the Lightning's prospect pool shows a similar story to Florida's, and that's that there aren't many high-end prospects in it. The Lightning's number one prospect is 19-year-old Sam O'Reilly, who seems like a safe bet to play NHL games as a middle six center. Beyond that, the Lightning could offer up 20-year-old Ethan Gauthier, who has just 2 assists through his first 11 AHL games of the season. 18-year-old Ethan Sazda is off to a decent start with OHL Niagara, but is still a few years away from sniffing an NHL lineup. The Lightning could offer up 22-year-old Dylan Duke, but after that, we're getting into sea-level prospect territory when looking at the Lightning's pipeline. Now, that was a long read, about 16 minutes of that. But let me do my mid-show sponsor read, and then I will, out of these teams, I have already written down some of the ones that I liked and intrigued me. But first, I want to give a shout out and thank you to one of my sponsors, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that fine and amazing artwork you see behind my shoulder there. And you guys can check them out yourselves at GassyJackArt.com. I'd also like to thank my primary sponsor, DraftKings. The Line Change Podcast is a presentation brought to you by DraftKings. Spinorama's Michigan goals, a wicked sprawling save across the crease, or even a jaw-dropping glove save. Live and breathe all the highlight moments with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets, and your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. Pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. All right, now let's take a look at some of these notes I put. I really did like the idea of trying to get a Easton Cowan from the Leafs, but I have to agree with Quads. I don't think that it would be that easy to get a guy like that from the Leafs, and it would be most certainly be costly, and we'd have to attach something or even retain some salary. But out of all these potential teams from Quads, I'm liking the 2 Florida-based teams the most, leaning more so to the Lightning and the idea of bringing in someone like Gage Goncalves, who happens to be from BC. I mean, we saw the Canucks' attempts to bring BC-born players back home, and both haven't really worked out. The first, of course, being Danton Heinen, who's now with the Penguins, and of course, this year with Evander Kane. But with Goncalves' age, you can't really compare the two. But let's take a look at Goncalves' stats and bio over on Elite Prospects. another that I was talking about, or that was brought up, actually, I should say, by Quads, and that's with the Panthers. I'm liking the idea of Jack Devine. Let's actually bring up his stats as well and his buyout from Elite Prospects. Jack Devine right there. And I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments section down below, who out of these teams would you be willing to trade Sherwood to? And out of these prospects, who do you like the most? Do you like Goncalves? Do you like Jack Devine? Do you think that maybe the Canucks could try and pry Easton Cowan from the Toronto Maple Leafs? Do you guys like Elmer Soderblom or Soderblom? And do you like his size? I'll admit, I really like Soderblom's size, especially after seeing that, pulling up his Elite Prospects page. You couldn't see my reaction, but when I saw that he was 6'8", I was like, holy crap. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this. I know this was a bit of a longer video, but if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find it, interact with us all over social media. We're everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, even Blue Sky. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. Join the discussion. Join our Discord. There is a link in the description down below. It is completely free to join. We can have discussions such as this on the Discord. So go ahead and join the Discord. Link is in the description, as I mentioned. Let me know if there's any issues with the link. I do try and update it every now and then when I can. But also, if you prefer a audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And as always, let's go Canucks, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Hey, Campoli missed the puck. Ryan Johnson just gets it out. And he stuck the puck back in. Campoli trying to clear it. Burrow shoots, scores!